Raptors drop game one to the Wizards 93-86. James Johnson doesn't play a minute. Dwayne Casey maybe just got outcoached by Randy Whitman. This and a lot more on Raptors Weekly Extra, starting now. All right, joining me to talk about Game 1 is Matt Shantz. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Zarar. How you doing, man?
Pretty shitty, man. Pretty shitty.
I'm with you.
This was supposed to be not easy, but I don't think it was supposed to be this hard to watch. The Raptors on Game 1 have gotten out-rebounded 61-48. They've shot 6 of 29 from 3. There have been some very interesting matchups with Tyler Hansbrough guarding Paul Pierce, which I'm sure you enjoyed. And something predictable, James Johnson didn't play a damn minute. So where do you start with this game, man?
I don't even know. I watched the game at the school that I work at and just finished walking 20 minutes home, spent the entire time just kind of remunerating around what I saw in that game, trying to find some positives, but at the same time, Washington played its worst game possible as well. So any positive that you can drag out of the Raptors, you can apply to the Wizards as well. Wall was great on D, but didn't shoot fantastic. Beal, his shot wasn't dropping. So they can play better as well. So I trying to find positives, and I can't even do it. Yeah,
well, we can't actually play that card, right? I mean, we played our shittiest game. Like, we played horrible, but we only lost in OT because when you look at Washington, they weren't great either. They shot, 40%? They were 28% from 3. They rebounded really, really well, but they have a lot of room for improvement. So the Raptors, despite playing quite poorly and taking the game to OT, can't just say that next time it'll just be better. But let's start with Valanciunas here because he's getting a lot of heat right now. Or Tyler Hansbrough, for that matter. So he gets the start ahead of Amir Johnson, which I thought kind of worked out sort of well because he came into the game, had some good pick and roll play, got a couple of scores, and was mobile on defense. And Amir Johnson came off the bench and had a very strong game, 8 for 12, 18 points, 8 rebounds, was probably our best offensive player in terms of pick and roll. So that tactical move of putting Tyler Hansbrough in, especially what it meant for Amir Johnson, kind of worked. So let's start with that positive.
Anybody who's blaming this game on our bigs wasn't paying attention. This was our guards that lost the game for us. Valanciunas battled hard. As you said, Hansbrough, I liked his energy to begin with. That switch actually worked out really, really well to start the game. He was finishing hard. On Washington's initial offensive possession, he had a great rotation, went straight up in the air and challenged. I think it was Nene who was attacking the basket. But he was there. He was doing his role. It was awful shooting from distance and poor ball management that really lost it for us.
So let's talk about that second quarter sequence where the Raptors kind of had the upper hand. They were up 6 or 7. Momentum was kind of on their side. You had this feeling that despite not playing well, they were still controlling the game. And when Randy Whitman, of all people, made a tactical adjustment, he had Paul Pierce play the 4 and match up with Tyler Hansbrough. And this is where Dwayne Casey didn't match up. He let that matchup play itself out for I'd say about 8 or 9 possessions, and Washington went on a run there and assumed the lead and really took control of the game. A couple of timeouts by the Raptors, crowd kind of got deflated, and that was a turning point for me in this game. Was that not being able to handle what Whitman did, and Whitman's a guy we make fun of for being a terrible coach, but he did it, man. He made an adjustment, and Dwayne Casey didn't respond.
I'm really hoping that was accidental on Whitman's part. I don't want to give him credit that, let's put Pierce in at the 4 because that'll give us a tactical advantage. I think it was just eeny, meeny, miny, mo, maybe.
You're hoping.
That led to that, at least moving forward. But man, either way, Casey got outcoached. And what drives me nuts is, yes, he makes weird rotation decisions. But whatever his game plan going into a game is, he refuses to adjust. Yeah. He sticks with whatever he thought of 3 hours ago, even if it's completely doesn't work. It's been proven to not work. And it was Paul Pierce. He had 7 games last season in the playoffs that proved it again and again, that he tried to do the same thing over and over and over again, and he still can't figure it out. It blows my mind how he does that.
Yeah, I think Will made a good point on Twitter where he goes, Dwayne Casey's the type of coach who makes adjustments between games, not during games. Like he had his mind made up on Tyler Hansbrough, and he started him. And once things didn't go, went kind of south with Hansbrough second quarter, he stuck with him. He didn't know how to respond. And as you said, like that's been a problem. In-game adjustments have been a major issue for the Raptors.
Even the halftime interview with Tom Sterner, him staring straight into the camera and just going, "We're going to go back to our bigs and we're going to stick with it." And really, that's your response to what you just saw? You're going to stick with it?
So you made a comment that we can't blame our bigs here, but man, the rebounding here was something sensational. I mean, the Raptors, the final numbers aren't as bad as it actually was. The final numbers are 61-48, but I mean, the Raptors kind of made up this difference kind of later in the game. But between the second and third quarters, Washington was in the game because of just poor defensive rebounding by the Raptors, not just their bigs, but once the shot goes up, the weak side is completely empty. Like Terrence Ross, I wrote in the quick reaction, is just horrible at boxing out his man. He doesn't even track his man, making runs to the rim on the offensive glass. So, is this what we're going to see in terms of rebounding, or is this just a one-off?
I don't think that's one-off. Rebounding is something that's been shown to be easily maintainable. Shots fall, shots don't fall. Rebounding, if you're a good rebounding team, you're going to out-rebound your opponent. And Washington's been a good rebounding team this season. We haven't been great. It seems like that's been our Achilles heel, or one of our many Achilles heels throughout franchise history, that we just don't get the boards. But as you just said, Terrence Ross doesn't box out. John Wall was coming in clear for the putback rebounds. It's picking cherries at that point. So even if, Nene, Gortat, even if those guys are being boxed out, they're still popping out. It's the other players who are coming in, and suddenly our bigs are 2-on-4 on the boards. So yes, Amir, Valanciunas, they're getting beat. But it's not, I don't think it's quite that simple.
Yeah, and Vasquez and Williams, so when you play those two guys 31 and 32 minutes, which is fine. I guess that's your offense, so you got to play those guys. But those guys are contributing 2 rebounds and 3 rebounds each, and they're not great rebounders. But forget about rebounding; they're not boxing out their check, which is hurting the team on the glass. But there's some noise on the site right now about Valanciunas sitting out OT and chunks in the fourth quarter. Like, I get it. Like, he's our biggest player, so if you put him in, your rebounding should theoretically improve. But he wasn't playing good pick and roll defense either. So I can almost understand why Casey subbed him off. It was like, because he wasn't hedging out properly. He wasn't negative on defense in this game. So I don't necessarily blame Casey for taking Valanciunas out.
I don't really either, but it goes back to that same thing. Was that an actual tactical adjustment by Casey, or was it just this was his plan going in of going with a slightly smaller lineup, more mobile lineup to end the game? I don't know. I'm not sold on his decision making. In fact, I'm quite opposed to a lot of his decision making. So, yeah, the guy drives me nuts.
Yeah, so some 3-point shooting here, man. Terrence Ross 0 for 6, Kyle Lowry 0 for 4, DeMar DeRozan 0 for 1. Really, nobody in the starting lineup hit a 3 today. Patrick Patterson hit 2 early, and Vasquez and Williams hit 4 late. In overall, 6 for 29. Like, you can play the card that, hey, if we just make our season average from 3, we may win this game. But can we make that argument?
I don't think so. What was Beal's number from 3? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, Beal was 1 for 7. You're right. Yeah,
1 for 7.
Yeah.
If he shoots his season average, we're not even in overtime. Once again, we're getting into that. Washington and Toronto both played arguably to their worst potential.
Yeah. Except that Washington has a defense and rebounding, which are the crux of basketball, and they can rely on that when things aren't going well offensively. The Raptors don't have that cushion to fall on. And if it's feast or famine, if your offense is going great, you're in the game, you're probably winning. But if it's not, then you start looking around and there's not much there.
Exactly, and we even had to sit through one of Amir's summer threes. Can we stop calling those?
Yeah.
By the way, but it was just atrocious. We tried to shoot our way back into a game when shots weren't falling.
Yeah. We're kind of flabbergasted here. And Will just texted me something. He texted me a tweet here. Says adds that it is hard to get all wings and. Oh, Dwayne Casey basically said that there's going to be a place for James Johnson. It just wasn't in this game. What the hell does that mean? If it's not in this game, what game was it? Paul Pierce, of all people, the guy Toronto Sun made fun of, was the leading scorer in this game. He had 20 points, and he was the leading scorer of everybody. And I wish there was somebody the Raptors had who was primed to guard a small forward of Paul Pierce's caliber.
If only Masai Ujiri saw this coming after last playoffs of just needing a wing big defender who could guard guys like Joe Johnson and Paul Pierce. If only he went out and got that last summer, our team would just be in an entirely different place right now.
Yeah, I just don't see the rationale behind just freezing out James Johnson at this point. I know it's a fashionable thing to do to say why JJ isn't playing, but in this game there's plenty of like tactical reasons why he should be playing. Paul Pierce being one of them. I think Dwayne Casey did a good job of putting Terrence Ross on John Wall, which kind of worked. Wall was 5 for 18 in this game. It kind of slowed him down. Of course, in the end, when it mattered, Wall got to the rim and basically threw off the entire Raptors defense, and the offensive glass was open, and they scored. But so he made one adjustment of putting Ross on Wall. I just don't see if you can make that defensive adjustment, why you can't put James Johnson and put him on Paul Pierce. It's not like Terrence Ross or anybody was was on fire from outside that you were giving up offense. You weren't. It was just I don't know. I'm flabbergasted.
I don't think that the Terrence Ross on John Wall switch was made for an advantage of getting a bigger defender onto Wall. I think it was made because of Lowry being in foul trouble. It was a response to, I can't have my starting point guard guarding the fastest guy on the floor. So it was more of a response to foul trouble than it was for a defensive upgrade, I think.
Yeah. And that didn't work out because Kyle Lowry fouled out, and Bradley Beal actually waved to him as he was walking to the bench, which was something pretty.
I actually enjoyed that. Yeah. That was in a sick sort of way. You know, he owned them. He drew Lowry in and let him know afterwards. Yeah, I just took you to school.
And Kyle Lowry, his defense has just been so poor, man. He is gambling on screens. He's trying to reach. He's trying to reach for the ball from behind. He's trying to cheat off screens. Everything he's doing on defense isn't working. I can't point to one play today where I could say Lowry played that defensive possession correctly. The only positive for Lowry here is that he hit the glass. But that's something he does when the rest of his game isn't really flowing. He goes, I better contribute somewhere else. So he finds the glass to do it, which is great. But man, we're paying him to hit shots and play some defense and basically play John Wall even at the very least. And I don't know. It's just not a good game from Lowry. Not a good game.
No, one of his worst of the season. Yeah. Just atrocious, and his defense has taken a significant step back this year. I wonder how much of it is the over rotations that we do. We're constantly flying around. No team submits to greater imbalances in their defense than we do. Yeah. It's just constant switching, and there's always an advantage for our opponent.
Yeah, if you have an opponent that can move the ball around, which Washington can do because their guards can actually pass, they're patient enough. They're a veteran team. We forget that sometimes. So they have some veterans on that roster who learned to be patient and they killed us. So yeah, it sucks, man. We should talk about Lou Williams a little bit. 4 for 16 in this game, which is a very, very shitty number. 2 of those threes were massive, and they're the reason the Raptors were in it. Same with Vasquez, who I thought had a decent game. Let's talk about Vasquez first. 4 for 6, 10 points. No hero ball today. Was relatively composed. Had 3 assists, and I think all those 3 came off of like good pick and roll play with Amir Johnson and a couple other bigs. Nothing irresponsible. I'd say he played a good game. He hit his shots. So no complaints on that end, and wasn't exploited defensively by Wall as I thought he might be. So Vasquez, I'd say good game.
Yeah, good game. I wouldn't go as far as saying no hero ball. I think that we would look really differently on his game-tying 3 if it were missed. He hit it. It was great. He had his man fall down a couple steps away. but it was a quick shot. It was a quick shot, step up, not necessarily something, something we'd love to see from Curry, but not necessarily something we'd love to see from Vasquez often. But he hit it, so it was great. Everything worked out.
What about Lou?
He was our best point guard.
What about Lou?
Lou, it was bad Lou today. Yeah. We either get good Lou or bad Lou, and it was bad. In overtime, John Wall just abused him. Just got to the lane at will. I have no idea. Once again, a sign of Whitman's ability. Calling up a John Wall fadeaway at the end of regulation. It's just.
I thought it was pretty funny hearing the Raptors announcers criticize that play openly and saying the offense was a little discombobulated on part of the Wizards, when that's the kind of play the Raptors have been playing since game one of the. I didn't get that one. So
and if it was DeRozan, Matt Devlin would have said that's his shot.
Yeah,
that's his shot.
That's his shot. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So some more quotes coming out of the post game. Dwayne Casey said that he heard the chants for James Johnson because the third tier there at the ACC was saying we want James Johnson, and he heard them, but he says James Johnson is a quote unquote matchup player, and insists that his time will come, but wasn't today. Reaction there, Matt, on that of him being a matchup player.
I don't even know where to begin with that. Okay, sure. Let's assume his premise is right. James Johnson is a matchup player. What's his matchup? What are you saving him for?
What needs to happen? What configuration of players need to be on the floor?
Like he's a matchup if you play him in NCAA, or when does he actually get used at that point? So even if the premise is right, but if you're saying you can't have him on the floor because you need somebody to stretch the floor for you, who was stretching the floor for the Raptors today? Nobody. You don't lose any 3-point shooting with the way we shot today. You get a huge defensive upgrade. You get a guy who can regularly go games where he's shooting 70% because he has his little Euro step into the lane that's so effective. What is the matchup for him at that point? So it's, to me, that's just excuses.
Yeah. So some more quotes I'm going to read you. People are tweeting out. Casey, until we make rebounding a priority, it's going to be hard for us. Well, no shit. Rebounding's got a big part of the game. Probably should be number one priority at all times. But
until we do a fundamental element of basketball well, the game will be difficult.
Yeah. Forget Casey's quotes, man. They're not interesting. It's just the same old bullshit. Let's talk about game 2 before we sign off here. It's on Tuesday night, so you get all of Sunday, all of Monday, and Tuesday in the day to think about this. Washington's actually going to fly back to DC and come back for game 2. So it's not like they're stuck in a hotel here. They're going to have time to prepare at home. They're going to be fresh again. It's a good break between the first 2 games. So fatigue probably isn't going to be a factor here. What are you looking for in game 2, man? Let me start. So the one thing that I was kind of fearing entering game 1 was that Kyle Lowry's minutes. Like, he had played 36, 35, 34 minutes in the last few games of the season. And I thought that, in game 1, beyond the first quarter, he looked tired. Like, he didn't have that explosiveness to get to the rim. And I looked back at that time of the regular season, and I said, maybe that's an issue now. Tonight, he plays 33 minutes. Again, logging heavy minutes. DeMar DeRozan, 43 minutes. Game 2... just what do the Raptors do tactically different? Like, if you're the coach, man, what do you do to stop Washington from out-rebounding you by 13 again?
Are you asking me what I would do or what I think Casey will do? Because he'll probably just stick to the game plan and come back with the same strategy as before. James Johnson has to see minutes. Yeah. I read one person on Twitter today saying Raptors Twitter was basically coming out and making James Johnson seem like LeBron James. It's like, no. We're not asking for LeBron James. We're asking for a guy who can come in and fulfill his role and just do it within our system, and that's fine. So yeah, I'd like to see him on Paul Pierce, both in the 3 and the 4 position, because I think that size will bother Pierce. Pierce, we cannot let him go. I think it was 7 for 10 today. That can't happen. So even if we get beat on the boards, let's try to bring that, within at least 8. But it needs to come from the guards and wing. We need to box out. A lot of the times they were the ball was actually being popped out by either one of Washington's bigs or our bigs. And our wing players were nowhere near to get the rebound.
So I think it's an inevitability that we're going to see a lineup of Patterson and Hansbrough out there. And they're going to give up size and bulk, more importantly, to Gortat and Nene. And that's kind of what's resulting in a lot of the rebounding issues. Is it crazy to suggest that we should match them with that bulk and maybe give Chuck Hayes a few minutes here and there just so we push the Washington bigs a little away so they're not really dominating the glass? Or is that like a drastic move?
I think it's drastic. I'm always up for some Charles Hayes. I love Chuck. He once again, Casey would call him a role player that he needs to have the right matchup. Nene and Gortat both have bulk, but they're also fairly mobile. Both of them, they're quicker than Chuck would be. But if you're getting killed on the boards, you might as well bring in a guy who's been shown that he can help in that regard. It's worth a try. If you're being out rebounded by 20 and are down by 15, bring him in. Yeah. Give him a few minutes and see if he can turn the tide. That's what helped us in that Memphis game earlier this year. Memphis was just destroying us, and it's like, I might as well bring in Chuck, see what happens. And Chuck started just, not letting Marc Gasol get too close to the basket.
Yeah. Yeah. So game 2, we'll preview game 2, obviously, comprehensively from now till then. But right now, the Raptors obviously have to fix the rebounding. I think an easy solution might be to get James Johnson in there. But hey, man, what do we know? We're just bloggers. I think you can't expect John Wall to go 5 for 18 again. But I did like, whether it was accidental or whatnot, I did like Terrence Ross on John Wall. I think that should be repeated. And Valanciunas, you can't have a guy of his offensive talents just go 3 for 7, and those are all like on putbacks and stuff. So I think you got to do a better job of somewhat establishing his presence early. Maybe in the first quarter, get him up to like 6-7 touches, establish a presence underneath, because the Raptors didn't do that this game at all. I think you got to do that, like especially if you want the guy to rebound for you, like if you want the guy to be participating in the basketball game, you got to establish him a little bit. So that might be something to do. And Kyle Lowry, he has to be more disciplined on defense. Like that's you can't be gambling so much. You got to lay off Wall a little bit. You can't be chasing Beal across screens. There just needs to be a little more organization when we're guarding Bradley Beal, because his movement was killing us.
Yeah, he's just moving everywhere off the ball, and we're chasing him, and it's that over rotation. It's our style of D that we've been playing all year, and I think other teams have caught on to it pretty quickly.
Yeah. And final talk is about DeMar DeRozan, 6 for 20 again. Okay, he started off really well. I thought we attacked Pierce really well to start the game, whether it was Lowry or DeRozan. We put Pierce under pressure, and he got to the rim a couple times. He got a score. I thought we were exploiting Paul Pierce's legs in that first quarter, but it never went beyond that. DeRozan never really pressured anybody beyond that. Like, he kind of settled into that perimeter game. He missed some makeable shots, to be fair. I think he had shorter players on him, and he just missed looks that he has made over the last 10 games of the regular season. I don't know how much you need to tweak DeMar DeRozan's game. Overall, he had 15 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. He played distributor really well. So I was happy with DeRozan's approach to the game. And I think if he just does the same thing again, he might see a much better offensive production in terms of scoring.
Yeah, I wasn't too disappointed with his offensive game, but it's kind of like we didn't correct our deficiencies and we didn't build on our successes. We moved away from stuff. So he was having some success of there was a few times where he was backing down Beal in the post and either got a good opportunity or was able to swing it out to Patterson for an open three or for Ross to brick a three. And we can exploit those things. He's a good post player and draws attention from the opposition, and so yeah, he can build on what he did. And once again, I don't always know what to make of DeRozan. He can do the same thing every single game, and one game it'll be perfect basketball, and the other game it will be ugly.
Yeah, so let's leave it at that, man. This is a reaction pod. Let's go compose ourselves and and prepare for game 2. The series is not over. We've always dropped game 1 in a series, it seems like.
It's our history, yeah.
And this is no different. So the Raptors will have a chance to rebound. Game 2 again is on Tuesday night. It's on ESPN2, which I think is worse than NBA TV.
Yeah, but after watching game 1, wouldn't you downgrade us to community television?
I think so. I think sorry, game 2 is now moved to Rogers. All right, man. Thanks for joining, man, and hopefully we'll have a more cheery podcast after game 2.
Hopefully. Take care.